There was once a man named Elias who lived in a small, bustling town where appearances and wealth meant everything. He wasn't born into money, and life had never been easy for him. His clothes were worn and patched, his shoes barely held together, and his home was a rundown shack at the edge of town. He worked odd jobs, often the ones others refused to do, like cleaning gutters, fixing broken fences, and hauling heavy loads for a pittance. Every day, as Elias walked through the market square, the townsfolk would mock and ridicule him. "Look at him," they'd laugh, "the raggedy man chasing coins." Children would point and giggle, and merchants would shoo him away from their stalls, as though his mere presence might scare off customers. He bore the humiliation with quiet dignity, never lashing out, but his heart ached every time he heard their jeers. He knew no one respected him. They saw only his tattered clothes, not the kindness in his eyes or the strength in his spirit. But Elias had dreams. Every night after his long, grueling work, he would sit by the flickering candle in his tiny home and read books he had borrowed or found discarded. He devoured knowledge about business, inventions, and the world outside his little town. Despite all the hardship, he believed in something more for himself. He just needed a chance. One day, while on his way to a job, Elias stumbled across an old piece of land outside the town that no one seemed to want. It was barren and overlooked, but to him, it held potential. Over the years, he had saved every coin he could, sacrificing comforts to keep a small, hidden pouch of money. With his meager savings, he purchased the land. The townspeople mocked him even more. "What a fool," they said, "buying dirt when he can barely buy bread." But Elias was not discouraged. He had a vision. He worked harder than ever, clearing the land by hand, planting trees, and slowly turning the dusty plot into a small farm. It wasn't much at first, but the soil was rich, and soon enough the trees bore fruit. He didn't stop there. With the knowledge he had gained, he started experimenting with innovative farming techniques and new crops, and eventually his small patch of land began to flourish. Years passed, and Elias's hard work paid off. His farm grew into one of the most successful in the region. The fruits he cultivated were prized not just in his town, but in towns far beyond, and his business expanded. Slowly but surely, Elias became a wealthy man. His wealth, however, didn't come from chance or inheritance, but from years of sweat, determination, and the quiet belief that he could make something out of nothing. Now, when Elias walked through the market square, the same people who had once ridiculed him greeted him with smiles and respect. The merchants who had once shunned him now eagerly sought his business. They praised his wisdom, his hard work, and his success. Children no longer laughed at him. Instead, they looked up to him in awe, for Elias was no longer the poor man in ragged clothes. He was a man who had risen through the ashes of mockery to become someone they admired. But Elias never forgot those hard years. He remained humble and generous, often helping those in need, especially the ones who reminded him of his past struggles. He knew too well how fickle respect could be when it was tied to wealth, but he also understood that true worth came not from gold but from the heart. Though people had changed the way they treated him, Elias knew that he was the same man he had always been, the man who had been mocked and ridiculed, yet had never let the world crush his spirit. In the end, it wasn't the riches that defined him, but the quiet, unwavering belief that he was more than what the world saw.